everybody. Lord Tremendous here. Got another book review for you. And yeah, I'm kind of cranking them out, but I've got the time, so why not? The next next book up anyway, is called Strathen. It is according to Amazon, a dark fantasy horror coming of age fantasy ebooks. I know I got to quit reading these. But the author reached out on Reddit and said that it was a dark fantasy horror that met my criteria, and I didn't look at it before I agreed to do it, so I did it. However, I don't believe there's anything about this that's actually coming of age or young adult or anything like that. I'm actually a little irritated by this book. I'm not even going to try to hide that. It was rough. I got it on Kindle Unlimited with my subscription, but you can get it for $4.99 on ebook, and on paperback it's $14.99. The link will be in the description. It is 356 pages, and it was released on May 6th of 2019. So I sat down and I started reading this book by Mr. Gray Melmoth, and it aggravated me very quickly. Number one, first and foremost, this book has not even been glanced at by an editor or a proofreader or a plot line or anything of the sort. It is a hot mess. The punctuation is awful. To the point where it's very, very difficult to read. There's commas where there shouldn't be commas. There's nothing where there should be commas, periods, quotation. Just some English teachers all over the country are furious right now, and they have no idea why. It's that bad. Word usage is awful. Coherent thoughts are not there. Sentence structure is just abysmal. I'm not an English teacher. I'm not an English major. My degree is nothing anywhere even close to being in English. But dear God, I'm offended. I mean, I'm physically angry by how poorly written this book is. I'm not. I don't want to be a jerk, but I'm also trying to be very honest, and I can't help it. This is insulting. This is insulting. If you're going to go to the trouble of writing a book and you should know your grasp on the English language. At some point, somebody has graded a paper of yours saying, this is your degree of understanding of the English language. Listen to that. I'm not saying that if your grasp of the English language is bad, you can't write. You absolutely can write. Get an editor. Get a proofreader, and not just some friend of yours, somebody that you hire. I cannot overstress this enough. I need an editor, okay? I have a decent grasp of the English language, and I'm aware of how desperately I have an editor. I have a great editor. There's going to be an ad for my editor very soon. Please, if you don't use my editor, use someone that is an actual, bona fide professional editor if you're going to publish a book. Otherwise, you're literally going to repulse your readers, especially with something like this. The storyline, so the synopsis of the book says that it's about this girl, Kara, who's got to get back into this dungeon of Strathen, which is her, after a botched escape attempt between her and her sister. And that is true in the very beginning of the book. In the first 20% of the book, that's true. After that, forget that entire plot line. The author goes way off in left field. It's still all loosely tied together, and by loosely, I mean it's not tied together at all. By the end of the book, none of the characters you're introduced to, and I used introduced to supremely lightly, are even in the book anymore. You're dealing with a whole slew of characters that you don't even care about. Like, I don't even know their names anymore because I just don't care. That's how little these characters mean to me. So anyway, in the very beginning, the character is trying to get away. Kara. It starts off, and you have no idea how old she is. You have no idea why she's there. She's scrubbing rocks in the middle of a dark, dreary dungeon. The whole thing. It's a dungeon, and Strathen is a dungeon inside of a mountain. I have no idea why. I have no idea why there are people in there. I have no idea why Kara and her sister are there or anything of the sort. But you get the impression that they've been there for a long time and that they're servants or urchins or cockroaches. I have no idea. I have no idea why they're there. The book never tells you. Never tells you. I don't even know how old this girl is. At one point, I thought maybe she was like 10, and then next thing, I'm thinking maybe she's 18, because her competency level borders from grossly inept to barely competent, and it's infuriating that she's able to live past the first 5 chapters. I'll get into it in the spoilers, but oh my god. So they're trying to her sister comes to her and is like, we need to go right now, and then a slew of really discombobulated things happen that makes no sense. You are literally knocked off your feet by this book, and not in a good way, because you're just confused. You have no idea which way is up. The next chapter hits, you're talking about completely different people. You have no idea how they connect, and they never really do. None of the plot lines ever really intertwine in a meaningful way. It's kind of like, oh, hey, dude. Oh, hey, how's it going in your story over there? Oh, we're in the same story. No, we're not. You're crazy. It's that ridiculous. So now you've got this other plot line with an individual that's introduced as the worst person on the planet named Ambrose. But he's apparently some weird Shakespearean speaking individual for whatever reason. He's the only one that speaks that way. Like, it's a mix between ancient, like, knights and stuff like that, like thee, thy, thou, but a lot more poet. It's literally like reading a Shakespeare poem or something like that. It's frustrating the way they talk, and you have no idea what his purpose is. He goes crazy, but he's like supposed to be the worst guy in the entire universe, but he's a prisoner here, what? Next thing you know, it goes off on some sort of weird tangent about he sells his soul, and he escapes. Like, he's emaciated, and the guard comes in and he's able to escape, and he goes on this mad run, and that's it. Next chapter, you're back with Kara and her sister, who have returned after escaping, or at least that's what you were led to believe in the first chapter, and they have to go back for their dad, and it's just, what is happening? At some point, I get out of this, like, Kara escapes, and after being a terrified, cowardly, inept child who only escaped because it's in the plot, she suddenly, like, ties a bandana around her head and becomes ninja warrior without any, and she's able to, although you have no idea if she's ever even been outside of this dungeon, which I believe she's never has. She's able to immediately, she knows where an inn is. She's able to put together this weird, really poorly conceived notion of how to fight and everything like that, and this game plan to get revenge, where she finds wine and a butcher's knife and goes after a highly trained guard. Granted, he's a fat slob and he's a pig, but she's able to slit his throat, but she doesn't hit anything vital. So the next time you see him, he's fine, and he's mad at her, and my head hurts. My head really hurts. And then it just gets more unraveled with new characters no one's ever described. I know more about that fat, inept guard with a neck made of just butter, but apparently also he's got Wolverine's ability to regenerate, than I knew about any of the other characters. And then Carol dies, but then she comes back, and then she dies again, or sacrificed. It's so weird. It's so awful. Just you know what? It's a 0 out of 5 stars. There's nothing good about this book. I do like the cover art. I do like the cover art. It's very pretty, and it caught my attention. I won't lie. If I had been walking through a bookstore and I saw this cover, I would have picked it up just on the cover art alone. I think it's gorgeous, but that's the nicest thing I could say about this book. I'm so close to just going off on a rant about it, and I don't want to do that. That's not exactly the purpose of this channel, but this one has been the most difficult book I've had to get through to date. And granted, I haven't been doing it this long, but it's actually physically affected my mood. 0 out of 5 stars. I am going to play my wife's editor ad on Fiverr. Please, if you're a self-published author and you're listening to this and you think, I don't need an author, I've got a great grasp of English, stop. please take this advice. If you don't listen to anything else I ever say, listen to this advice. Get an editor. If not the ad that I'm about to place, then another professional editor. Don't just get some friend to do it or some acquaintance. Get a professional editor to do it, because sweet Lord, this book is a textbook reason why. Buckle up. Hey, also, everybody knows that just finishing a book isn't the entire battle. You gotta have an editor. Otherwise, there's a good chance your book is gonna be awful. So if you're looking for one, my editor, elatoria at fiverr.com, is available for a very good price. If you want, go check her out. Spoilers are coming next, so if you're still here when the music stops, that's on you. Okay, so I think I ranted well enough in the non-spoiler side, that where the spoilers are more or less the same, because I don't have a coherent A to B on how to get you through this book. In the very first chapter, you meet Kara. She's literally scrubbing flagstones in this dungeon. You don't know why. You don't know what she's doing here. You don't know who she's afraid of. You don't know how old she is. You don't know what she looks like. You get a vague idea that she's got brown hair and she's probably a white girl. That's about it. That's as far as I still don't know how old she is. I don't know. I assume she's frail and weak and meek and pathetic and dirty, because a lot of things are dirty in this book, which is fine, but I have no idea. But she's introduced like she's going to be the main character. So she's cleaning these floors, but when she hears someone coming, she panics and tries to hide herself in the shadows. I have no idea. If she's supposed to be there and she's cleaning the floor, then why would she shrink away from whoever is coming down the corridor? She's supposed to be there. She's some sort of serving wench. If she's not supposed to be there and she's worried about getting caught cleaning the floor, scrubbing the floor, why is she scrubbing the floor? Like, the intro makes zero sense. But, of course, the person coming down the corridor is her sister, Leto. Her sister's like, we need to go right now. We've got to escape. Mom is dead or whatever. And so you're like, all right, they got to run away. Is this their home? What's going on? So Kara is an idiot. And I cannot emphasize that enough. She is a blatant moron. And sure, you can have a stupid character and still have a good story, but not in this situation, no. So her and her sister are running away frantically from nothing. Nothing is chasing them. Nothing is coming after them. Nothing at all. But then for some reason, Leto decides she needs to show her weak, pathetic sister, Kara, that their father has been captured and is emaciated and beat all to hell and chained to a wall and cut all the ribbons, barely holding on to life, right? Her sister freaks the hell out. None of these doors are locked, by the way. They're in some weird dungeon where locks are for the rich, because none of these people are locked up or anything, or none of the doors are locked. They hide in the shadows after seeing their father. Kara goes, I have to save Daddy. I have to save Daddy. We have to get him out of here. And Leto's like, there's no time. We'll come back. So they run away from their dad's cell, right? No idea why she would bring her in there with no plan to save their father. Just, look, Dad's here. And I don't know. They run away, and there's these cult members that are dragging some random NPC prisoner who looks a lot like their father, but it's not, to this altar where they stab him. They chant some weird gibberish words that has zero effect on the environment. They stab him a whole bunch. He bleeds out, and then they throw him into a pit or into a cage thing where he gets eaten up real quick, and very terrifying. Very terrifying. Everything is dark and dreary. She has a torch, but for some reason, firelight doesn't seem to work in this fucking place. I don't know. I don't know what is going on. So Kara is like, we have to go back for Dad. We have to go back for Dad. And Leto is like, we will, but not. We have to escape first, and then we'll come back and we'll figure something out. But we can't do it now. End chapter, right? So you're led to believe they escape. Next chapter. Completely different individual. You meet the worst character. Literally, the book says this is the worst person to ever grace the planet. And his name is Ambrose. And he's a prisoner in there. And he's been stuck there. He's emaciated, starving, blah, blah, blah. And he's I don't know, a lunatic. He's some sort of prince. He calls himself the Yellow Prince, or I don't know what any of that means because it's never flippin' explained at all. He breaks his water jug. Why they're giving these friggin' prisoners ceramic water jugs is beyond me. But when he breaks it, the guard comes in there and beats him half to death. And so he's sitting there whimpering, waiting for death, and he hears scratching. Through some sort of weird plot device, he decides that the scratching is either a guard, a maintenance worker, or another prisoner. And if he makes a noise, depending on how long it takes the individual to be quiet, will determine whether or not they're a guard, a maintenance person, or another prisoner. The logic used in this thing is not logic at all. Just literally, he could have wrote, so I need this guy to know that this other guy is a plot device, and that's why I'm introducing a scratching noise. So of course he talks to the individual. The individual is trying, like the author is trying to be smarmy and quick and witty with this individual, but it just comes off as pedantic. And he eventually, the prince, desperate for whatever, says yes, he'll sell his soul to this guy, and by doing it, he cuts his wrist. He slashes his wrist open so that blood is flowing out of his hand. He literally outlines the entire border of his cell in his own blood, and then draws a hand or uses a hand, coats his hand, his other hand in blood, his own blood, puts it in the middle of the cell, and then with his middle finger he puts a drop of blood on there. He says some weird chant in perfect English, which apparently is some sort of slut magic that makes it so that his middle finger dissolves, horribly painful, into their sealing the deal. And that's the last time he ever hears from whoever it was that was talking to him. And he's able to stop his slit wrist from bleeding by wrapping a piece of his shirt around it. So the author has no concept of anatomy or how a split open artery would have ended this guy's storyline pages before he got any further. But yes, a ragged piece of cloth is able to stop the bleeding, no problem. Dude goes absolutely insane, and because the author is trying to do some sort of Gollum thing, this guy starts saying everything that he's thinking out loud because 7. Anyway, it turns out that the dot in the middle of this thing, which is never explained, I think it might be the red circle in there. I don't know. I don't have a friggin' clue. He feeds it his gruel and it grows a little bit, but you're not really sure because dude's kind of a lunatic now. And then he decides, oh no, the dot needs blood. And so he cuts himself a million times with this shard of clay pot, which the guard that beat him apparently left in there for no reason. He cuts himself a bunch of times on both arms, bleeds to the point of passing out, and then emaciated, weakened, and already with a slit wrist and have probably lost a gallon of blood, he wakes up, he's fine. Not only is he fine, but he discovers that the dot has grown because it was fed by his blood, and he breaks the other jug so that the guard shows up, comes into the cell, and this guy who's emaciated, major blood loss, cut to ribbons, his arms are shredded, his wrist is shredded, is able to overpower the guard and kill him with pieces of the clay jug. Of course, the blood from the guard feeds the dot, which becomes really, really big. And while the guy is, the nighttime is the right time about this friggin' dot, soon as the dot eats the guard or whatever, again, nothing is ever explained. He runs out of his cell, promising the dot that he'll come back for it like it's Wilson on a deserted island. I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what's going on. Then you go off on this next chapter where you meet a minstrel. I don't think the author knows what a minstrel is because he's treating them like some sort of fanatical monks or something like that. A minstrel is like a bard, and they're like some sort of order of religious zealot people that are well known sometimes, and other times nobody has a clue who they are. They're supposedly good people, but they don't do anything. And there's this guy, Morris. He's a moron too. He's the male version of Kara. It's ridiculous. And they're sent to Strathen to meet with Ambrose. Ambrose, by the way, is being sent to Strathen because he's got to marry the princess there. It never explains any of it. None of that ever coalesces. None of it ever makes sense. Eventually, you run into somebody named like Vegan and another person named Magus or Medius. Sophia shows up at some point, and I don't have a clue what's happening anymore. Just the horrible plot line. You can tell the author has no idea where this story is going. He has no idea what he's doing. This is like 8 short stories written down on loose leaf paper. When he was done writing all these stories half-assed, he threw all the pages up in the air, and then when they came back down, he scooped them all back together and said, I will name it Strathen, and I will publish it, and it will be good. And he was wrong. I don't know how else better to describe what's going on in this book because my mind literally rejected it. It just, at the end of the book, it's all wrapped up in a bow. Dude, a guy who was in the last 40% of the book, and some love interest Sophia, they're together, they're beat up of course, but they're victorious and in love, and everything's happiness, rainbows and joyous fireworks. And yeah, it's just the ending is just, I was more relieved to be done with the book than actually the story being fulfilling. I feel like somebody owes me money. Just unbelievable. Nothing about this book made any sense. Nothing about the plot was a plot. Like I said, it's 8 different half-ass short stories all thrown together that don't make any sense at all. The grammar, formatting, syntax, word usage, everything is wrong about this book. It fails on every single level. The only positive thing I have to say about it is the cover art is very nice. And that's it. 0 out of 5 stars. I know this was a different type of review, but this book offends me. I can't be nice about it. It's just not in me. This book was terrible on every possible level, with the exception of the cover art. I like the cover art. 0 out of 5 stars. A well-deserved 0 out of 5 stars. Okay. So that's it for this one, everybody. Again, I'm sorry for the downward spiral that took, but I could not overemphasize enough just how disappointed with this book I am, and every single level, every single reason that I needed to get that out there, or I couldn't say that this book review channel was based on integrity, because saying that any part of the inside of the book was good would have been a vicious lie. However, that being said, I'm well aware that I'm not the end-all be-all when it comes to opinions on books. The link to this book will be in the description. On ebook and Kindle Unlimited, it's a steal. Check it out. I mean, if you can get past it and you enjoy it, or there's some part of the book that you like, or you think that I'm out of my mind, then please, in the comment section, let's have a debate. Let's have a discussion. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love for that to occur. Nothing would make me happier than to be proven wrong with this one, but I doubt that will be doable. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as quick as I can. And as always, thanks.